Hello, this is George Geis, and welcome back to Streaming 2027. Earlier this week, Paramount Global reported its fourth quarter earnings results. Now that the fourth quarter 2023 results are in for the major streamers, let's step back and examine the current zero-sum game in the streaming market and what the future may hold. So we're going to talk about the zero-sum game, and there's an intriguing revenue and earnings results for Q4 2023. We'll discuss this. We'll also discuss why churn analysis is becoming ever more important in 2024. Finally, we'll talk about what the future may hold for streamers focusing on Warner Brothers Discovery. So let's get started. Here we are with our Streaming 2027 application. And I'm going to go with it's before the constellations. This time we're going to look at major video streamers. So first of all, we'll see a description which talks about the increasing competition among major streamers, making rigorous lifetime value analysis more important than ever in determining what's made, what's renewed, what's canceled, and what's out-licensed. In February 2024, last month, for Q4 2023, for the 5 major streamers that separate out direct-to-consumer reporting, Netflix has positive operating income. What's interesting is that the operating losses for the other 4 companies that we'll talk about sum approximately to Netflix's operating profit. We'll show you a graphic in just a minute. That's the first point. There's a zero-sum game going on here with respect to operating profit at the current time. Also, we want to mention that serial churners, 3+ cancellations over a 2-year period in the U.S. now make up a significant share, around 25% according to Antenna, of subscription video on demand subscribers. Super heavy churners, 7+ cancellations over 2 years, and I'm in that category, grew to 17.1 million, up 88.6% year over year, again according to Antenna data. So churn analysis, lifetime value analysis, which is more complicated given this churn dynamic, is becoming increasingly important for streamers to consider as they think about moving towards higher operating profits. Let's go down and take a look at this direct-to-consumer financial dynamic that I mentioned. This is data for Q4 2023, and we're talking about revenue, the bar, and operating profit, or a proxy. Now, these companies report operating profit or proxies in slightly different manners, so we'll have to understand that. But look at these numbers. The revenue, if you sum up these players, Disney, Paramount, Peacock, and WBD, you get a little bit more than Netflix. So Netflix essentially is a sum total on the revenue side. But even more interesting, if you look at operating profit, Netflix's operating profit in the black, and you sum up Disney, Paramount, Peacock, and WBD, their direct-to-consumer operating profits or proxies of operating profit, you just about, and you can do the math, it's within 99%, more than 99%. You sum up these losses, and they just about total the operating profit of Netflix, which is $14.96 for the quarter. We have a zero-sum game at the current moment. Let's go down and now generate, as before, a constellation, but this time we're going to generate media and entertainment. We'll go over to major streaming services, and what comes back is a very complicated constellation. It's even off the screen. We can shrink it down to show you the complication that it demonstrates. But I want to focus a little bit more on, remember, this includes both past deals and forecast future deals. Let's talk about future scenarios, and let's in particular focus on Warner Brothers Discovery. So I have Warner Brothers Discovery up, and you can see these are potential future deals. We will talk more about this in just a minute. For example, let's look at Paramount Global. One deal that's been talked about, you may be aware of, is WBD acquiring Paramount. Currently, we have this as a probability being low. Remember, we have 5 states from very low to the very high. I would put this on the top edge of low. Low might be 0.2 to 0.4. This may, be a little closer to 0.4, but we'll see how this plays out over time. Let's talk about what this event entails. I have it in June of 2025, where Warner Brothers Discovery acquires Paramount Global, reflecting consolidation in the media space. The equity value of the transaction is $10 billion. Now, you may know that Paramount Global's equity value is currently market cap maybe $7.5 billion as I'm talking about this. This is a modest premium. So here we talk about this event under a doomsday shakeout scenario. Remember, these events occur under different scenarios. But why is it currently low probability? Well, in February of 2024, WBD has gone pencils down on a potential acquisition of Paramount Global, according to CNBC. And also, notice there's a negative sign, which kind of impacts the probability negatively. And also in January 24, Skydance is discussing an all-cash bid for Paramount's parent, National Amusements. On the other hand, there's some positive indications. In December of 2023, David Zasloff met with Bob Bakish of Paramount to be able to discuss a possible merger between the companies. Again, this is now pencils down. And also in November of 2023, Zasloff and board member John Malone both comment that WBD is paying down debt, building up free cash flow to set up acquisitions in the future that suffer from distressed valuations. So we can see why we're currently putting this at a relatively low probability given these recent events, but still, as I mentioned before, the probability is not inconsequential. All right, so let's go back up to Paramount, to Warner Brothers Discovery, and to be able to look at this in a little bit more detail. I'm going to go down here and bring up more details for Warner Brothers Discovery. And again, I'm going to scroll down as before to look at the timeline. Here's a timeline for Warner Brothers Discovery. And you'll notice, as before, we've got this red line. This red line, anything to the left of it indicates past events, where anything to the right of the red line talks about potential future events under different scenarios with different probabilities given the scenario. Let's just look at one possible deal for Warner Brothers Discovery. There's a lot of possibilities we could explore, but let's talk about the upcoming NBA rights. I'll click on this and scroll down, and here we have an event which has a relatively high probability. May 2024, Warner Brothers Discovery obtains a smaller package of NBA rights than previously held in a 9-year deal, $11 billion over the 9 years. That's about the same amount of commitment, capital commitment, that Warner Brothers currently has to the NBA. Now, let's talk about why we consider this to be a relatively high probability. February 23, 2024, in the earnings call for WBD, the CFO stated that the company prefers to own most content in its $20 billion a year spend. Now, Gunnar Wiedenfels acknowledged the importance of long-term relationships with the NBA. He stresses, however, that the company is going to be disciplined in its upcoming negotiations. Think capital allocation, given the fact that Warner Brothers Discovery has lots of things going on, including a deep commitment to paying down its large amount of debt, something we've discussed before. Now, in October of 2023, the statement is made, and this is by Sports Pro, that the NBA is really WBD's flagship sports property. And the league is appreciative of the coverage of TNT inside the NBA. The show is highly regarded. So we have this as a high probability, but remember, we're suggesting that a smaller package of NBA rights will be obtained given the capital constraints of WBD at this particular time. All right, so in this video, we've summarized the state of major streamers, where operating profits for almost all streamers are negative. 2024 should be a year of improvement, where we no longer see this zero-sum game that we've discussed. And we revisited the bidding for upcoming NBA rights and suggest that WBD could face capital allocation constraints and settle for a more modest package. We'll continue to follow this fascinating bidding for NBA rights as we go forward.